It's wonderful to be here in Austria for the 10th anniversary, the memorial retreat to honor Fukushima Roshi's passing 10 years ago. I'd like to begin with a story that meant a great deal to him when he was young. When he was about 14 years of age, a young acolyte monk at Hofukuji in Okayama, the temple where he was preparing under Okada Roshi, his first master. And one evening, Okada Roshi, who was a very dynamic, not at all an intellectual type of Zen master, very dynamic speaker and person, told the story, very well known in Zen circles, of Kyogen, Chinese monk long ago, who was brilliant, knew everything, had studied greatly, and even practiced quite a bit. But his master could see that something was lacking, something fundamental. So one day he told the young, brilliant Kyogen, I don't want the results of your study and learning, but just one word from you directly about your original face before your parents were born. Well, the young Kyogen went back and went through his texts and his sutras and came up with various answers, none of which the master accepted. The master would say something like, no, that's just the result of your intellectual learning. That is not your original face. Finally, Kyogen became disgusted and very frustrated, and he lost all confidence. He felt, something's not right. I can't stay here with this master. He went and even begged the master, please, master, tell me, what is it? What is it? And the master said, anything I can say would be mine and not yours. You will regret it later. Finally, the young Kyogen left. He could not stay anymore, so he left the master, gave up, at least on the surface, his practice and his training, and he ended up just being a kind of cleaning up the memorial for a Zen master who had died some time ago, and a memorial was built for him, but no one was there to care for it. So the young Kyogen, having lost all confidence, felt maybe this is about my speed. I will just clean this area, and that's what I can do with the rest of my life. But one day, when he was cleaning, a pebble happened to hit a bamboo in the grove there, and that top sound that it made, with that, he deeply awakened, and everything just fell away. As the story goes, he bathed, put on fresh robes, and then bowed in the direction of his master and said something to the effect of, thank you, my thanks, my gratitude is boundless. If you had taught me, had told me it when I begged you to, I would never have come to this. The debt I owe you is greater than the debt I owe my own parents. Well, this young Kyogen went on to become a great Zen master, but that part of the story where the stone or the pebble hits the bamboo and everything just falls away was told by Zen master Okada in such a way that the young, about 14-year-old Keido, he wasn't Keido Fukushima yet, the young acolyte monk Fukushima and the other acolyte monks there at Hofukuji were just really fired up, inspired, And as Fukushima would tell it, the next morning they did their chores as quickly as they could and then ran out to the bamboo grove near the temple, and every stone that they found they would throw at the bamboo and make that talk sound over and over and over. And of course he said in the end we were not any wiser as a result. Years later, Fukushima Roshi was a graduate student at Otani University where D.T. Suzuki taught. He wrote a dissertation on the record of Rinzai, Yinchi. Then he entered the monastery, relatively late by the way. Most monks enter around 20, 22 years of age after college. He went in after graduate school. When I first met him, that was one of the things that amazed me because I was the same age as when he went into the monastery. So when I went into the monastery, also relatively late, 27th year. And he was quite a bright student, the young Fukushima. He had gone to graduate school, unlike most of the other monks. They had maybe gone to 4 years of college or just after high school gone into the monastery. So he was in years and in learning advanced. But this is not necessarily helpful in Zen practice. As he tells it, he would go in every day to the Doksan, the one-on-one meeting with the master. The master now at Nanzenji was Shibayama Zenke. And he could give brilliant answers. He would quote the record of Rinzai. He was working on the Muko. And finally, Shibayama got so frustrated with this brilliant disciple and his brilliant answers. He said, if you're going to give answers like that in the Doksan room, go back to graduate school, which is a very strong criticism of a monk. Finally, Shibayama was set in his response. Whenever Fukushima would come and give an answer, Shibayama would simply respond in Japanese, baka ni nare, baka ni nare. Be a fool, be a simpleton, be a fool. And Fukushima, now his frustration, his sense of started to grow. Wait a minute, I've learned all this stuff, and now he's telling me just to be a fool, but I know so much. Could it be getting in the way? And he was very careful to say when he was in the States, sometimes I would be interpreting for him, he would always tell the audience, you're not supposed to talk about what goes on in the one-on-one room, the koan training. You know, it's not public knowledge, it's between you and the master. But he's very careful to say, in this case, I couldn't help it. So the monk next to me in the monk's hall, I asked him, I said, listen, every time I go in to the doksan, to one-on-one with the Roshi now, all he says is, be a fool, be a fool. Does he say that to you? And the young monk next to him said, no, he tells me to study hard. Which is probably what that monk needed to learn, needed to know. But for Fukushima, he told him, be a fool, be a fool. And finally he got so stuck that he really didn't know what to answer. And then eventually, during a Rohatsu, actually the most intensive week-long training in early December, he was able to break through and really be a fool in the best sense of the term. But in a way, we can see Fukushima's whole life here, the brilliant studies that he did, accomplished calligrapher. But in Zen practice, we have to give everything up. This is a must. And for those intellectually inclined, it can be very difficult. And in a way, it can be simpler for the simpleton, for the one who is not so educated. Dai or Dahui one of the great Sung Dynasty Zen masters who, in a sense, developed the koan practice, used to say that these scholars, Confucian scholars, literati, that would come to him and try to practice, he would say, what you need to do is just forget everything. Just forget everything. In a way, he was saying the same thing that Shibayama was saying to Fukushima. Become dull, he would use that term. You have to be a dullard, to be dull. You know everything. You know everything. For every koan, you have 5 different answers, but you don't know directly and immediately the original face that is right now shining through everything. So this is, in a sense, a common theme in Zen. Not to be simply stupid, but to let go of everything that you think you know, so that you can really come to it from within, so to speak, from the inside. And I suppose this is precisely our task now. How do we really do that here and now? This is the legacy that Fukushima Roshi has left us. Huh? Some of us have gone through practice and training at the monastery at Tofukuji, trained under Fukushima Roshi. A precious, precious thing. But we must be able to bring it to life here. It must be our question, the question that we are. We can't borrow this question. We can learn a lot through the Zen tradition, but we can't borrow this. We don't need to borrow this. What we can do is to really open up to it in and as ourselves. That's how, and that's what I learned over the last 10 years. That's how we can truly be faithful to the tradition. By not carrying it on our shoulders and trying to imitate or compare, but rather diving into it here and now. Because that's exactly what they did. All of that stuff can be useful, it can be helpful. It can also get in the way. This is a good time to really start anew, start fresh with the question, the marvelous question that we are, and come to that for ourselves. The tradition can be a great aid. Let us use it in a real way. We don't need to imitate. All we need to do is find it under our own feet. And then, in a sense, the practice really begins. Huh? This long, complicated koan curriculum. It has its place, but it must be done from within. It must be done. Each and every one of us must find out how to go through that and bring it to life for ourselves. It's not a dead tradition unless we kill it. That is our task now. For the rest of this retreat, let us look into just what that is and how that works. For now, let us return to the practice.